are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I am continuing my series review, The Book of the Damned by Charles Fort. And as always, you can find all the links to the show as far as ways to listen to it and support it, and also support our friends at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And that's going to be basically a new introduction to shows from now on, just to save some time and direct you all to where you can find all that, but also get to a little more content into the shows. So let me see here. Thank you all for being here. And yeah, we're going to get back into reading The Book of the Damned here by Charles Fort. And see how far we can get in it now. We're definitely closer to finishing than we were there's less left now than, how do I say that? Words are hard. We're almost done. There we go. That's better. So there's like less than 10 chapters left, I believe. So there's like 26 chapters in the whole thing, I think. And I'm going to reread just a little because it's not much to reread. Just a couple small paragraphs. Talking about this correspondent in a publication about anomalous experiences here. His impression as to the one that appeared first, that it was, in quotation marks, really a heavy shadow cast upon a thin veil of clouds by some unseen object away in the west, which was intercepting the sun's rays, in quotation marks. Upon page 244 of this volume of Nature publication is a letter from another correspondent to the effect that similar shadows are cast by mountains upon clouds, and that no doubt Mr. Smith was right in attributing the appearance to, in quotation mark, some unseen object which was intercepting the sun's rays, end quotation marks. But the old dominant that was a jealous dominant, and the wrath of the old dominant against such an irreconcilability as large, opaque objects in the sky, casting down shadows upon clouds. Still, the dominants are suave very often, or are not absolute gods, and the way attention was led away from this subject is an interesting study in quasi-divine bamboozlement. Upon page 268, Charles J.P. Cave, that's quite the last name to have, that's kind of cool actually, the meteorologist, that's even funnier in a way, writes that upon April 5th and 8th at Ditcham Park, Ditcham, Petersfield, he had observed a similar appearance while watching some pilot balloons. But he describes something not in the least like a shadow on clouds, but a stationary cloud. The inference seems to be that the shadows at Chisbury may have been shadows of pilot balloons. Upon page 322, another correspondent writes upon shadows cast by mountains. Upon page 348, someone else carries on the divergence by discussing this third letter. Then someone takes up the third letter mathematically, and then there is a correction of error in this mathematic demonstration. I think it looks very much like what I think it looks like. But the mystery here, that the dark patches at Chisbury could not have been cast by stationary pilot balloons that were to the west, or that were between clouds and the setting sun. If to the west of Chisbury, a stationary object were high in the air, intercepting the sun's rays, the shadow of the stationary object would not have been stationary, but would have moved higher and higher with the setting of the sun. I have to think of something that is in accord with no other data whatsoever. A luminous body, not the sun, in the sky, but because of some unknown principle or atmospheric condition, its light extended down only about to the clouds, that from it were suspended two triangular objects, like the object that was seen in Bermuda. That it was this light that fell short of the Earth that these objects intercepted, that the objects were drawn up and lowered from something overhead so that in its light their shadows changed size. If my grope seemed to have no grasp in it, and if a stationary balloon will, in half an hour, not cast a stationary shadow from the setting sun, we have to think of two triangular objects that accurately maintained positions in a line between sun and clouds, and at the same time approached and receded from clouds. Whatever it may have been, it's enough to make the devout make the sign of the crucible, or whatever the devotees of the old dominant do in the presence of a new correlate. Vast black thing, poised like a crow over the moon. It is our acceptance that these two shadows of Chisbury looked from the moon like vast things, black as crows, poised over the earth. It is our acceptance that two triangular luminous luminosities, there we go, and then two triangular patches like vast black things, poised like crows over the moon, and like the triangularities at Chisbury, have been seen upon or over the moon. So that's fascinating. That's quite the thing to be seeing. Also, like I said in the last one of these episodes, I find it fascinating that people are seeing triangular objects before there were even aircraft that were either, again, advanced technology from humans or possibly something else. So here we go. Continuing on here. Scientific American 46-49. Two triangular luminous appearances reported by several observers in Lebanon, Connecticut, evening of July 3rd, 1882, on the moon's upper limb. There we go. They disappeared, and two dark triangular appearances that look like notches were seen 3 minutes later upon the lower limb. They approached each other, met, and instantly disappeared. The merger here is notches that have at times been seen upon the moon's limb, thought to be cross-sections of craters. Monthly notices, RAS 37-432. But these appearances of July 3rd, 1882, were vast upon the moon, in quotation marks here, seem to be cutting off or obliterating nearly a quarter of its surface, in quotation marks. That's a lot. Something else that may have looked like a vast black crow poised over this earth from the moon. Monthly weather review, 41-599. Words are hard. Description of a shadow in the sky of some unseen body, April 8th, 1913, Fort Worth, Texas. Supposed to have been cast by an unseen cloud. This patch of shade moved with the declining sun. Let's see. British Association 854-410. Account by two observers of a faint but distinctly triangular object visible for 6 nights in the sky. It was observed from 2 stations that were not far apart, but the parallax was considerable. Whatever it was acceptably relatively close to this Earth. I should say that relatively to phenomena of light, we are in confusion as great as some of the discords that orthodoxy is in, relatively to light. Broadly and intermediatistically, our position is that light is not really and necessarily light any more than is anything else really and necessarily anything, but an interpretation of a mode of force, as I suppose we have to call it as light. At sea level, the Earth's atmosphere interprets sunlight as red or orange or yellow. High up on mountains, the sun is blue. Hadn't heard that before. Unless he's making sort of an example here. Very high up on the mountains, the zenith is black. Or it is orthodoxy to say that in interplanetary space, where there is no air, there is no light. So then the sun and comets are black, but this Earth's atmosphere, or rather dust particles in it, interpret radiations from these black objects as light. Again, this may be just sport thinking here. It's fascinating to think of things that way, but I don't know. I kind of figure that these things out in space do have light, but anyway, we look up at the moon. The jet black moon is so silvery white. I have about 50 notes indicating that the moon has atmosphere. Nevertheless, most astronomers hold out that the moon has no atmosphere. They have to. The theory of eclipses would not work out otherwise. So, arguing in conventional terms, the moon is black. Rather astonishing. Explorers upon the moon, stumbling and groping in intense darkness, with telescopes powerful enough, we could see them, stumbling and groping in brilliant light. Or just because of familiarity, it is not now obvious to us how the preposterousnesses of the old system must have seemed to the correlates of the system preceding it. Get something in my eye. There we go. Yet jet black silvery moon. Altogether, I thought it was typo, but it wasn't. Altogether, then, it may be conceivable that there are phenomena of force that are interpretable as light as far down as the clouds, but not in denser strata of air, or just the opposite of familiar interpretations. I now have some notes upon an occurrence that suggests a force not interpreted by air as light, but interpreted or reflected by the ground as light. I think of something that, for a week, was suspended over London, of an emanation that was not interpreted as light until it reached the ground. Lancet, June 1st, 1867. It's a publication, apparently. That every night for a week, a light had appeared in Woburn Square, London, Woburn, upon the grass of a small park, enclosed by railings. Crowds gathering, police called out, in quotation marks, for the special service of maintaining order and making the populace move on, in quotation marks. The editor of Lancet went to the square. He says that he saw nothing but a patch of light falling upon an arbor at the northeast corner of the enclosure. Seems to me that that was interesting enough. In this editor, we have a companion for Mr. Simmons and Dr. Gray. He suggests that the light came from a street lamp. Does not say that he could trace it to any such origin himself, but recommends that the police investigate neighboring street lamps. That's kind of funny. I'm sorry, but that kind of is. It's a street lamp. It's never done that before, but it's doing this now. But it has to be a street lamp, a street light. That cracks me up. But anyway, I'd not say that such a commonplace as light from a street lamp would not attract and excite and deceive great crowds for a week, but I do accept that any cop who was called upon for extra work would have needed nobody's suggestion to settle that point at the very first thing. Or that something in the sky hung suspended over a London square for a week. Yeah, that's kind of odd. Yeah, oh no, not streetlights. Yeah. And it just doesn't make sense to me that unless there was something else there going on, why would a street light suddenly be putting light down? I mean, I don't know. I try not to be too hard on sort of mundane explanations for things, but that one to me is pretty weak, just in my own personal opinion. But I can understand people wanting to explain things away. But anyway, let's see here. I think we're at the end of a chapter. Let's see. Let's turn the page, so to speak. Yes, we are. Okay, chapter 21, starting that now. Chapter 21. And we'll just be getting this started before this episode ends here. Knowledge, December 28th, 1883. Seeing so many meteorological phenomena in your excellent paper, Knowledge, apparently this is a quotation, I am tempted to ask for an explanation of the following, which I saw when on board the British India Company's steamer Patna, Patna, while on a voyage up the Persian Gulf in May 1880 on a dark night about 11:30 p.m. There suddenly appeared on each side of the ship an enormous luminous wheel whirling around, the spokes of which seemed to brush the ship along. The spokes would be 200 or 300 yards long. Wow. And resembled the birch rods of the dames' schools. I'm not sure what that is. Each wheel contained about 16 spokes, and although the wheels must have been some 500 or 600 yards in diameter, the spokes could be distinctly seen all the way around. The phosphorescent gleam seemed to glide along flat on the surface of the sea, no light being visible in the air above the water. The appearance of the spokes could be almost exactly represented by standing in a boat and flashing a bullseye lantern horizontally along the surface of the water, round and round. I may mention that the phenomenon was also seen by Captain Avern of the Patna and Mr. Manning, third officer. Lee fore brace. P.S. The wheels advanced along with the ship for about 20 minutes. LFB. I guess it's the same person. So that's apparently a letter from, I believe, Knowledge, January 11th. Oh, my birthday. 1884. Yeah, so it says letter from AMCD. And those are all, I guess, abbreviations or initials. So, let's see. Next paragraph goes into the next page, so we're going to stop it there. I don't know what, yeah, I'm looking at the chat here. Wheel within a wheel, Ezekiel's sphere. Yeah, I don't know. Those lights, they're like wheels on the ocean, on the surface of the ocean. That's fascinating. I don't even know what would explain that. But that is all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.